Hello, and welcome to ACS Golf and this week's review. Now, this week we are looking at the Ping G Series fairway wood. Now, there's a reason I'm looking at this, and one of the main reasons is actually I've been looking at quite a few fairway woods recently, mainly because I'm really happy with mine that's in the bag, but I just can't seem to get it in the air. So I've been doing quite a lot of testing on different fairway woods from the second-hand market or newer, to see which is sort of coming out on top to go in my bag. Now, with this one, I actually just tested the G30 a couple of weeks ago. Check the channel out for that. And it made me think of maybe the G series because I actually had the G400s, like very enjoyed them, but it's just for me, it's just a distance. So I thought I'd have a look at the G series. Now that's 2016, so it's before the G400s. And the thing is about it is the price compared to the rest, it's sort of that middle sort of bracket because it is a little bit older, but it still is a Ping. So I managed to pick this up on the second-hand market for just under £60 over here in the UK, which isn't that bad at all. So I thought I'd give it a go. And show you guys if you should be looking for this if you're looking for a fairway wood when it comes down to Ping. Because one thing that a lot of people should realise is when it comes down to fairway woods, especially sort of the older models, it really hasn't changed that much. I mean, I watched a video the other day of Peter Finch, who's a PGA professional over here in the UK, and he was doing in a bag for one of his film guys, and they were doing a scene where they're obviously playing a course together and see if he could beat Peter Finch himself, and he put a TS3 in the bag, which is from 2019, and he even said in the video, it's like, I went for the TS3 because, to be honest, nothing's really changed in fairway woods over the years. Another example is obviously the big one, Rick Shields. He's got an old Cobra in the bag. So really, when it comes down to fairway woods, you really can look at the older stuff and get great performance. Go back 5, 6 years. And so I thought, what another great idea to test another Ping to see if you can go back to 2016 and be happy. So there you go. Now, as always, let's take a closer look at the club. Then I'll talk through all the technology in here. We'll get down to the range, throw some figures at you, and then what we'll do is we will come back and do the ACS golf scale. Okay, great. Let's have a closer look at this club. So there you go, a closer look at the club. And to be honest, out of all of them, so out of the G30, which I thought looked quite dated on the bottom, out of compared to the 410, which the 400 G400, which is the model after this one, it's okay, but I actually think I prefer the G series on the bottom. I like that sort of shiny look. I mean, obviously, the older I get, that does fade. I do like the blue around the edges, and I like the writing turbulators on there as well. So overall, I think it's actually quite a good looking Ping club. Now, going into technology about this, because there is quite a lot of technology in there, and like certain manufacturers, it changes a little bit when you go from your 3 wood to your 5 wood and onwards. So we'll get into that as well. But firstly, the first thing they did with here is they lowered the leading edge on the G fairway by 3.6 millimeters. Doesn't sound like a lot, does it? And this has the effect of moving the impact position 12% higher on the face, which makes it easier to get it airborne. So one of the sort of main thing about the G30s with reviews is it was quite difficult necessarily for your average golfer to get it off the fairway. Personally, for me, being that sort of mid-handicap golfer, I do struggle to hit my fairway woods off the turf and get them airborne. That's just down to my swing though. So there's been a few fairway woods I've tried that have actually done that really well. So it'll be interesting to see if this does it good as well, because for me, it's definitely a struggling point. So see if this can pop things in the air would be be a welcome addition. So we will check that out and see how much that has actually helped. Or if, like majority of fairway woods, when it comes down to me, I just get that low piercing ball flight. Great ball speed, but just little bullets. So there you go. Which has nothing to do with that. It's obviously to do with my own swing, but obviously you can get fairway woods which do help you pop it in the air to add to that sort of impact where I'm very much down on the ball to help someone like me pop it in the air. So it'll be interesting to see if this fairway wood can be one of them. So there you go. Now, the lower leading edge works with internal cascading sole design, which is essentially a thinner inner section just behind the leading edge on the sole that enables the sole to flex a little bit more to increase energy return to the ball. So a little bit more forgiveness there, and also to obviously help it get airborne. If you're ever trying a fairway wood or hit fairway woods, if you hit it off the bottom, it tends to maybe still come out sort of not necessarily slower than it would if it was further up the face. The ball speed is similar, but it tends to come out a lot lower. Which is one of the things that, again, they've increased that to help with turf interaction and help get the ball in the air. Now, the straight leading edge of the G it does take a larger divot than a more curved sort of G30. So you see here, it's a little bit more straighter. So it's not a curved sort of bottom there. And personally for me, I quite like the straighter bottoms there. I think when they're a little bit more curved, someone who, does struggle to get it in the air, a little bit more curved on the bottom, doesn't fill me with the most confidence, because I feel like I'm going to be hitting that bottom in the turf before I get to the ball. So having that sort of more sort of flat leading edge is actually something I do quite like in my fairway woods. So that's good. Similar to the G30, so the model before, it's still a 17x4 stainless steel head. Yeah, the face is now Carpenter 455 steel that has a 25% stronger yield strength than the body, so that they can make it thinner to flex without compromising strength. Obviously more forgiveness. If it can flex around the face more, you're going to get better ball speed across the face. The G crown has also been made 25% thinner than the G30, which saves 7 grams. That is then moved to the sole of the club. Here you go, and moves CG back just over 4.8 millimeters. So getting that center of gravity further back in the club is obviously going to help you with your swing to sort of get that ball in the air again. So another thing that Ping are doing to try and, really help people get that ball in the air. So the idea as well, obviously more weight at the back, gives more forgiveness. So the MOI increasing from the heel to toe by 3%, that's what they're saying, and from top to bottom by 7%. But even though that's not that much, Ping at the time said the MOI of the club is still 40% higher than most other clubs in the market. And for me, that's something that really does embody what Ping is. They're never the longest, but they're always generally the most forgiving clubs. And the idea is, well, yes, I might be able to get a TaylorMade down there 10, 20 yards, but am I going to be hitting the fairway every 10, 20 yards? Am I going to be digging out the rough? The idea is, yes, this might be a bit shorter, but odds on you're going to be on the fairway more. So that's something Ping did. They've also kept the turbulator fans there. See there we go. There they are. This doesn't actually help the club. So they put this in with the sort of the drivers, and they brought this in for the G30, but they realized that with a club head this small, they don't really help with the aerodynamics as much as the driver itself. So the idea, they've actually kept them there and made them a bit more prominent. So mainly just as an alignment aid. Yeah, so you know exactly where the ball needs to go. Ball needs to sit right here. Heading the club head's face is straight. And so I've kept it in there for alignment aid. And to be honest, I quite like that. I quite like the idea where they're telling you where the ball needs to be, rather than sort of, sometimes with certain clubs, you get just a tiny little dot there, or nothing at all. And it'd be quite difficult, especially if you're a beginner golfer or you're a high handicapper, to align the ball there. So to have those turbulators there, even though really they're not doing anything, I think it's actually quite a nice feature. And I believe, oh yeah, and last thing to mention as well, they're 169cc head, so same size as G30, but basically has a smaller footprint at address. So basically the idea is it looks a little bit smaller, made it a little bit fatter, but it's still the same size as the original model from G30. As always, they do their ultra ping shafts, which are great. And so another thing about this fairway wood is obviously the sleeve adjustability there. So the idea that you can obviously adjust this from 1.5 degrees up and then 1.5 degrees lower. So at the moment, normal ping fairway woods are actually at 14.5 degrees. So you can go up to 16 and then go down to 13. So a little bit of range there. Just a final bit of technology now. regarding this, and it's actually to do with the face and what I said about earlier about how they actually changed this from the 3-wood to the 5-wood and then going up. So the 3-wood features a rougher surface here with the idea that increases friction and reduces spin by around 200 RPM. Now that's great, fantastic, but then when you go actually down to the 5-wood, you have the usual painted grooves here, but in the 5-wood you actually have grooves in the center of the club as well, and that's for the 5-wood and the 7-woods. And the idea of that is if you're hitting it out the rough, or let's be honest, a 5-wood, 7-wood has got enough loft that you can probably hit it out maybe the second cut, not necessarily off the fairway, and so that's to help reduce the water, so and perform better in wet grass basically, and get that ball in the air and get the spin right. So quite a cool thing they've done there, where they actually changed it from 3-wood to 5-wood to 7-wood. The idea that they actually looked at the versatility that's needed for them and decided to change it. So there you go. Now let's get down to the range now and talk about some figures, and then come back here for the ACS Golf Scale. Okay. Here I am down the range. Now what I expect is around 230 yards for total distance when it comes to a 3-wood. So the carry on average I was getting 187 yards. Total distance 225 yards, a little bit lower than I'd want. Ball speed was 140 miles per hour, launch angle 8 and height 38. Now the longest was actually 239 yards. Lovely, 142 miles per hour ball speed, really happy with that. And the best carry actually was only 214. The launch angle 11, so a little bit higher then. It went up to 61 feet, so got that carry and got a good distance with that one as well, 238 total yards. Now, the one thing I will say with this is it's a little bit lower, like I said, than I'd expect, being 225 on average rather than 230, but that's the thing about pings, and not really known for their distance. Distance is good, but it's never the longest. But they're really known for their forgiveness. Now, ball speed was 140 on average, and only had 2 shots, which was below the 140, and they were 135 mark, and they were still getting roughly to their average distance. So generally really happy with the performance. So there you go, not bad figures really. So 225 yards, 5 yards shorter than what I sort of expect. Ball speed 140 on average, very happy with that. The only thing for me was a launch angle of only 8 degrees. The whole point of this club is to help you get it in the air. I didn't necessarily find that for someone who tend to really hit down low on the ball, have a very negative attack angle. It did come down not that well personally for me. But then I can adjust this. I can put it up to 16. I can get regular flex shaft in there, which would really help me get the ball in the air more. Probably lose a bit of control, but it would help me get the ball in the air better. So generally happy with it. And when I did manage to get that launch angle right, I got one 11 degrees, 238 yards total distance, very happy. 239 when I got up to 9 degrees total yards. So very happy with that. Exactly what I'd expect, but a little bit shorter than what I'd hope for 230 on average. And that's mainly because ping, if you think of ping, you think of forgiveness, you don't think of distance. So the distance is always good, but it's never the longest. So the idea of the ping doing, that's what they do, is yes, you can go and buy a TaylorMade. Yes, you can go and buy a Callaway. Yes, they might go on average 5 yards, 10 yards longer. The thing is, the ping might hit the fairway 9 out of 10 times, where your Callaway and your TaylorMade less forgiving, a little bit more unruly, and might be only say 6, 7 fairways if like that. So I was expecting it, to be honest. I was expecting the distance not to be above what I'd sort of want from a fairway wood for me. So we go straight into distance. 230 point for me is sort of, that's where the distance is really good. That's when you're going 4 and up. So 225 on average, I've given it 3.5 out of 5. Not the longest, as I've just mentioned, but definitely not the lowest either. So generally happy with it, exactly what I expected. So 3.5 out of 5. I don't know if they do an LS version of this, which is a low spin model, which they do to sort of increase a bit more distance. I know they do in the G400 and up. I think it's G400. Definitely in the more newer models they do. So if you're looking for a bit more distance, maybe look for the LS if you really want to ping. You want that forgiveness, but you still want low spin, low spin beast sort of thing. Don't get me wrong, the low spin aren't going to be as good as in distance wise as your TaylorMade low spins, whatever, but you'll have that little bit more forgiveness in them. So definitely something to think of. Now, Moving on to the feel. Feel, I've given it 3.5 out of 5. I can sort of feel where the hits are necessarily, and it does what it needs to do, but it's not like the best feeling thing I've ever felt in my life, and it doesn't feel necessarily powerful off the face. You know, when you got a 3-wood, you want to feel the power necessarily. Sometimes you can go down and you know this ball's going to go that distance you want it to. The ping doesn't really feel like that. It feels, I'm trying to think of the word really for this. It feels sort of consistent. Because I don't want to say bland, because it doesn't feel bland, but it feels sort of consistent. If it can, anything can feel consistent. I know what I'm going to get with it. You know, I do know if I have the off hits as well slightly, so that's why it's got 3.5 out of 5. Not like a brick, not the worst thing I've ever felt, but 3.5 out of 5. And interestingly, very similar to the G30 that I felt tested the other week, a couple of weeks ago. Sorry, very similar to that, and also very similar to the G400 that I played and in the bag for about a year. So very similar there. Not much change there, which is down to the whole thing about, you know, fairway woods not changing that much over the years. Now, on to looks. We'll get on to looks first. 4 out of 5. I do like the blue on the bottom. I think this is a lot more modern than the G30. You know, if you put that in the bag, people wouldn't necessarily look at that and think, oh, that's a club from, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. What's it is now? 2023, 7 years ago. You know, while the G30 I thought did really quite age not that well. I love the blue on the bottom, and I do like the turbo, what are they called here? The turbulators. I do like that for alignment, and I think it's quite niche. You know, nothing else really has that on the top, and I love the matte black. Personally, for me, even though I have a gloss club in the bag, I think they're both gloss actually. I think the Fairywood I'm currently testing is gloss as well. I do prefer the matte. Just reduces glare if you're out in the sun. I know that doesn't happen that often in the UK, but when it does, it's nice to have that option. So 4 out of 5 for me. Only issue is that shiny bottom can scuff up quite a lot. So if you're looking out there and you're going, I really want this, I'm going to get a new one. Obviously, you can't buy it brand new, but a newer one that hasn't been used that much, because it looks brand new. Be warned, the bottom can scuff up quite quickly. So just be aware of that. It might be worth just saving yourself a bit of money and going and get an older, well, a little bit more used, as I would say, rather than being like, well, now I've got a club that looks exactly the same as everyone else. So there you go. Now on to forgiveness. So I've given this 4 out of 5. Sorry, 4 out of 5. If we looked at the ball speed on average, as I mentioned before, I was 140. We're down at the lowest I went to is 135. One hit it right off the top, literally, I think off the top corner is my worst type of shot, actually. I think majority of people is as well. Still went 223 yards, so near that sort of average there. And another one was right off the bottom, still went 213. So not that bad. A forgiveness, I think, is very good. So that's why I've given it 4 out of 5. Actually, giving it the same as the G30. So even though it's the same as the G30, which is 4 out of 5 as well, I do think this has a little bit more forgiveness in it. I really do. So rather than getting down the whole rabbit hole of having like 4.25, 4.1, etc., I both put them at 4, but be aware that this definitely does have a little bit more forgiveness than the G30. Okay, so do be aware of that. So even though they're the same rating on the ACS Golf scale, this would be like a 4 plus if I was going to do a 4 plus. So there you go. Now on to the price, and this is my main sticking point when it comes down to ping fairway woods and ping clubs in general. So 2016 club, remember, I've given this a 2.5 out of 5. Now the main reason for this is because basically, well, let's run through the cost first. So if you went to say Golf Bidder in the UK, which is equivalent in the US of PGA stores, any second-hand main store like Replay Golf, you're looking at just under £100, which is just under about $125. That's a lot for a 2016 club. On eBay, you can get lucky. So I've seen them sold for £65, which is about $82. I've seen it sold for 60 itself. So again, around that $80 mark. But then if it's in good condition, suddenly you're looking at it a little bit more, and then suddenly you're looking at sort of £75, so around the $90 mark. Suddenly you're looking potentially over £100, $130. The G400, which is 2017, is even a bigger jump. That's £125, $150. So Ping hold their money extremely well. They really do, because honestly, the difference between this and the G400 is probably not a lot. Like I've said, fairway woods have not progressed a lot over the years. I will keep on hammering that home on these videos whenever I review a fairway wood. They just haven't. There's not really much they can do about it. It's quite a small club. There's only so big they can make it. There's only so many guidelines about how thick the face can be, the material they can use, etc., etc. So not a huge amount they can do with it. Obviously, they will make small little tinkers every year, and it might slightly improve, but you're not going to notice. Your mid, your high handicapper, myself, possibly, your low hand, even your low handicappers, you're not going to notice that much difference. If you're a professional, PGA professional, or you're going out there on tour, then yes, you might find a little bit of difference, but it's mainly because you're probably contracted and you've got to put the new stuff in the bag, and that's the thing. That's why they sort of keep their value. But the problem is 2016 club, it puts it in the bracket of 2019 clubs, the same sort of price. I mean, these are all clubs on sort of Golf Bidder in the UK, which, like I said, is a second-hand store that you can pick up the same as this for under £100. The TaylorMade M6 from 2019, you pick up the M4 as well. You can pick up the Titleist TS version, so the 3, 2. You can pick up Callaway Mavericks from 2020 as well. Cobra King F9s. The list goes on. And so for me, like I said, the price is 2.5 out of 5. I think Ping are very good at what they do, but if you're looking for a second-hand fairway wood on the market, I just think there's better options out there personally and give you that little bit more distance. Maybe not much forgiveness, but definitely give you some more distance and possibly save yourself a bit of money. If you're going brand new and you're getting fitted, then obviously the ping's going to be the same as all the other costs as well. So then do give it a go, do give it a try. So there you go. My thoughts on the Ping G series and the review. Personally, for me, in the second-hand market, unless you're a die-hard Ping fan, as much as their clubs are really good, you can go for other brands and save yourself a bit of money. That's always what I think about the Ping whenever I pick them up. I love them. I think they're great. I'd quite happily have Ping in the bag, but I just know that I could save my money and then go and put it towards another club or to a putter, etc., or a green fee, for crying out loud. So there you go. There's my review of the Ping G series. Now, if you like this video, remember to give it a like. Do say in the comments down below if you pay Ping. If you think they're worth paying that premium, even for a club that's 7 years old, over all the other clubs. Do let me know down below in the comments. And also remember to subscribe to the channel, guys. Let's get those subscriptions up, and to make sure you don't miss out on any of the reviews, and make sure that I keep on doing them, which I will. Don't worry. Just keep the subscriptions up for me. Come on, subscribe. Subscribe if you like it. Subscribe. Okay, guys. Have a lovely week, and I will catch you next week for the next ACS Golf Review. Bye-bye. See you then.